Hello, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics. We've interviewed San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo every year of his 2 terms in office. Today marks our 9th interview, in this case, an exit interview, looking back over the past 8 years and a little bit forward. We'll ask Sam about the accomplishments he's most proud of, as well as policies and programs that have fallen short of his hopes. We'll also ask about working with a divided city council, his advice to our new mayor, the future of his political action committee, and his own plans for the future. And that's what's coming up on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Mayor Sam Liccardo. I guess I should say the Honorable Sam Liccardo as former mayor.
Well, you become honorable when you're out of office, I guess. Yeah,
it's about time. It's about
or you
time.
can just call me Sam. That works well.
Okay, okay. We've been waiting. So we want to talk about your 8 years in office and your future. But let's start with the best stuff. What accomplishments are you most proud of in your 8 years in office, or 16 if you want to count your 8 years as a council member?
You know, I hesitate to think about one thing because there are a lot of things I'm very proud of that the team worked so hard on, and really very proud that we've accomplished a lot. But as I think about the stuff that didn't make the news, what I'm most proud of are the ways in which we invested in our next generation. And started initiatives focusing on often first-generation students who, for example, San Jose Aspires, it's now helping nearly 2,000 first-gen students pave a pathway to college with micro-scholarships and a digital platform, a mentorship, and so forth. And I think about programs like that, and I know that we're not going to see the results tomorrow or next year, but we're going to see the results down the road. I think about programs like San Jose Learns, where we expanded after-school learning in 16 high-poverty neighborhoods, focused now, expanded to summer school. Programs like San Jose Works, helping thousands of teenagers get their first job in the summertime. We know how important that is as they get engaged in work, and that's primarily focused in East San Jose. And a lot of those kinds of initiatives. Resilience Corps, which is something I'm very proud of, helping young adults during the pandemic get jobs that are serving the city and the community in some way, and now that's being sustained within the city and providing real pathways to careers for a lot of young adults, many really focused on adults coming from zip codes that are very high poverty. So it's those areas where I'm most proud, where we're investing in the next generation and hoping that they'll forgive us for everything we've done to them between climate change and billions of dollars in debt, federally, and who knows what else, pensions and everything else. Let's face it, we owe the next generation an awful lot, and they're going to be doing an awful lot of cleanup for us.
Those are really good programs. They did kind of expand on the basic responsibilities of the city, right?
Yeah.
It's not like in the charter that you're going to do these kinds of things. Did you get any pushback for?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly those critics who said, hey, this isn't one of the delegated responsibilities. We don't have a Department of Education. We're not responsible for the schools. We have 19 school districts, by the way, in the city of San Jose, with 19 school boards and 19 superintendents. So people are often not sure who is responsible for schools because they just don't know because of the enormity of the bureaucracies, right? But I think, there's no question that people expect their mayors and their city to do something about opportunity for kids, and particularly for kids who don't have the opportunity, who may be struggling. Obviously, we've had, for example, under Mayor Susan Hammer, an award-winning Mayor's Prevention Gang Task Force. We've changed the name now, but the focus was how do we invest in students or young people who are struggling. Maybe they're out of school, maybe they're disconnected from work. How do we get them connected and back engaged? And you think about the work of a mayor or of a city, that is the most important work we can be doing.
Right? Well, it's public safety related, and that's a primary responsibility.
Absolutely. It's public safety related, it's economic development related, it's related to so much of what happens in our city and our future. And so, you have to do things that are immediately important to residents. Obviously, you got to make sure the trash gets picked up and pave the streets. And I like to think we did some of those things well, and maybe some things I know we didn't do well. But you've also got to be investing in the future.
Let's go back to some of the things you did well. Well, not
well,
bad.
That's very kind of you.
Let's continue. Let's continue on some of the things you did well, because I have a little list here. First of all was pension reform.
Yeah.
And getting that settled with the voters approving a tax increase that helped balance the budget. And that seems to have had a good long-term impact, as you said last year that you were projecting 5 years of budget surpluses.
Yeah, for the
not
first
big
time.
Ones, but
yeah, and who knows? You know, the recessions to come can take care of all that in a moment's notice. But for the good news is, for the first time in a couple of decades, we saw our annual costs for retirement obligations, that's pension, retiree health care, go down. And that's a result of work that we all did together 6 or 7 years ago, negotiating with 11 unions, coming together. I'm sorry, that's my duck quacking. I'm going to turn that off. You know, they say you're supposed to turn these things off before you go on air, and obviously I didn't do a very good job of that. So what really, enabling, it really enabled us in so many ways, right? Because we're able to reduce those costs on an annual basis. There's millions of dollars we now have available to hire cops, to invest in libraries, and do all the things that we think are really important. So for the first time, we're opening libraries on Sundays for the first time in anybody's memory. Those are the things that are really the dividends, the benefits of that kind of work.
Also on my list, coping with COVID.
Yeah.
Got us through it. Wasn't pleasant, but you got us through it.
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
Downtown West, huge project, and you didn't give away the city in order to get it. Google's been, it seems like, a good negotiating partner. They're putting a couple $100 million into community benefits. They're including affordable housing.
Yeah, I mean, bluntly, we got a little lucky with regard to the partner we had.
Yeah.
There's no question. I mean, I've had a very strong policy. I don't believe in giving away subsidies in the forms of tax breaks or dollars from the public to corporations, and I think we've had a good record of bringing a lot of companies in or expanding companies without giving any dollars away. But Google understood it from the start. They understood the reality that this community is not interested in us giving public dollars to a big company that's obviously doing very well, although I guess yesterday just announced thousands of layoffs. But the reality is, we know they've got billions of dollars in net profits every year, and they understood, hey, this tech growth has had a real impact on our valley, and we have an obligation to step up. And they recognized it right away, and it didn't take a lot of prodding to get them to the table.
They worked with the city and the community. Some community folks I know actually said negotiating with Google was easier than negotiating with the city.
I believe that. Google has more money than we do.
That really helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, next on my list is Coyote Valley.
Yeah.
And San Jose's been fighting about that since the 50s, if not before. And it seems mostly settled now.
I think so. Yeah, and I'm very proud. And again, great coalition, environmental activists, neighborhood partners, actually some companies that were down there that were very interested in seeing that happen, as well as organizations like Open Space Authority and Post that really led the charge. And now the real work is working with the community to see what we can create there and really letting our imaginations go. I think there's great opportunity to work, for example, with local indigenous community tribes to see how we can designate land in different ways for perhaps preservation and restoration of what was there back when this was land that was Ohlone, and really help our young people understand, who was here before us. And I guess, a lot of opportunity, I think, for thinking about creative approaches to urban agriculture and trails and recreation. So it could be great.
And flood protection.
Yeah, not a bad thing.
And
flood protection, which was one of the instigators to all this, actually. And as we think about more and more, also protection of our water supply. Not often appreciated. An enormous amount of our underground aquifer is located there under Coyote and very vulnerable if there's development.
And one of your last acts was the recommendation for some reform of investigation of police misconduct, increasing the role of the independent police auditor, which the council approved in December, I think, just as you were leaving.
Yes.
So that took a while to get there.
It's still got a ways to go.
Yeah.
The good news is we got the ball rolling, and hopefully this council will continue to push. It's heavy lifting, obviously, in any big city. There are large forces pushing against you, but I'd like to think we're going to get to the place where we've got an independent agency outside the police department that will be responsible for investigating misconduct.
Any other major accomplishments you want to mention?
I could bore you to tears with all my list, because I'd like to brag about all kinds of things, but I'm also happy to talk about the other stuff as well. So let's get right to it.
Remember this?
Sure. I'm hoping it's going to be a major motion picture.
Well, your mom and I read it, so I heard.
Yeah, I think you're one of 3 people on this planet.
No, I think some other people at least had a pretty good look at it.
Here we go.
Sam published this in his 2014 campaign for mayor, and put out actually thousands of copies of it, right? Not to every household maybe, but
actually I used to walk around, knock on doors, and drop it off at doorsteps.
And that's where all those no solicitor signs started to show up. So
hey, it was a free book. Come on.
I actually took a look back at it. There's some really good stuff here. There's one section where you recommend smarter government. Actually, it's a long section. It's about 50 pages of this book about smarter government. More reliance on data, more program evaluation, what you called reset budgeting, a little bit like zero-based budgeting, innovation. All good things, it sounded like. I wonder how satisfied you are with how far we got with them, in part because your successor, Matt Mahan, campaigned on almost exactly the same themes like we should be better measuring how we're doing as a government. So how do you think you did on getting to smarter government?
Yeah, I think we made a lot of progress. We announced a smart city vision in 2016, and the idea was, how can we open up City Hall to the very creative, innovative community that we serve, bring people in who want to be part of that, and also take advantage of the people who are already in City Hall, who have been really quite desperate and interested in using technology and tools to improve their ability to deliver services and work. And I think we've seen a dramatic transformation within City Hall around attitude toward technology and data. And our goal was to become the most innovative city in America by 2020. I think that was the goal we set. And sure enough, just on schedule, Government Technology Magazine named San Jose the most innovative city in 2020 and 2021. So that was all good. And these are not areas where the public is necessarily going to see it. It doesn't make the front page of the Mercury, I understand. But for example, during the pandemic, we had the ability to understand where the food need was, because we'd already done the GIS mapping, identifying where food sources were for distribution, helping people get to that easily. And we went literally from delivering a couple thousand meals a day, through, or maybe a few hundred meals really, through our community, senior services, to delivering more than 2 million meals a week during a pandemic when we critically needed to deliver food. All of that was really on the back of...
Say those numbers again.
Yeah, we went from a few hundred to more than 2 million a week.
Wow.
Yeah, and the scaling was made possible because of the use of technology and data in ways that we never had before. And I give credit to a lot of really bright people at City Hall, and Kip Harkins, I name a long list of them, but they really dug in on these ideas. And it has helped us enormously. For example, what the fire department, Robert Sapien, did in improving our emergency medical response. Again, doesn't make the front page, never made the newspaper. But you think about a critical service and saving lives, reducing the amount of time it takes for the fire department to be able to get to emergency medical calls. And they are the first responders, not the ambulances. And we were way out of compliance when I started in 2015, and we got within compliance within 2 or 3 years and dramatically improved. A lot of new technology was used for that. And yes, we also added to the fire department. Obviously, we needed to restore some positions. So there were a lot of wins on technology. On the other hand, I could, fill your entire show with frustrations about how many times we continue to be measuring outputs rather than outcomes, and how we're serving a host. I mean, think about ways in which, we would measure, social services of various kinds, for example, around youth violence prevention, for example, and are we still going to continue to measure how many hours we're spending with kids, or how many kids we're serving, as opposed to how are those kids doing? Mm-hmm. And so that's an orientation that just takes more work, right? There's a significant shift, and I think Matt believes that strongly. And the truth is, in every organization, innovation is not something you do once. It's something you do continually. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be bad habits we pick up and we got to drop, and there's going to be innovations that are long overdue that we simply haven't been able to implement. And when I came in, it was literally took us years just to get the budgeting software in place where we could do half the things I thought we were going to be able to do on day one that took us year 7.
Yeah. Well, so you're saying pretty significant progress there.
Yeah, there's significant progress, but I give myself an incomplete, because like this work is innovation in particular. This is ongoing.
Well, it looks like you have a successor who's prepared to carry the effort on.
Yeah, and he's got a great track record. He understands in the private sector how to do it, and I think he's going to do very well with it.
What were your biggest disappointments? What policies and programs do you think really fell short?
I think if you asked any mayor of any big city in the western United States, they'd say one thing above all over, and that's homelessness. Right? It's a crisis. It's a crisis in every big city, and if you use as a standard for how well we're doing, are there thousands of people out on the street or not? The answer would be we're doing horribly. And we've got a lot of work to do. On the other hand, I was just meeting with Jennifer Loving just an hour ago, and talking about the extraordinary scale of improvement of our ability to get people housed. Housing at 10,000 people over a few years is pretty extraordinary, except for the fact that the economy was churning out and pushing people out onto the street at a faster rate than we were able to house.
We actually have more people who are homeless now than when you took office.
That's right.
But at the same time, 10,000 were housed?
Yeah, that was a number she cited, and I won't get into all the details.
But we know it's thousands.
Yeah, we know that we dramatically improved our ability to get people housed. And I think about initiatives we took on the quick build housing communities that we built during the pandemic. When we had very little money, and we did have the advantage of having an emergency, which meant we could waive all the rules and the red tape and get projects built quickly. And we built 3 of these quick build housing communities, and immediately within a year and a half, 800 people moved off the street into the communities. About 85% of them stayed housed. So we were able to do things fast, and we found better ways. On the other hand, we know it's very much still a crisis, and I know it's number 1 on Matt's list as well.
In 2018, you set a housing goal of 25,000 units by 2022. So how'd you do?
No, it didn't work out.
That didn't work out, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, what we had hoped was going to happen was first that North San Jose would be open for housing, and we had thought, okay, well, we're negotiating it out with the city of Santa Clara, and once we can do that, there's what is planned to be 24,000 more units of housing to build right there in North San Jose. And we had developers chomping at the bit. We had affordable builders ready to go. And literally, we worked, got the city of Santa Clara to approve, and then the county of Santa Clara decided, oh, you know what? We're not that supportive of this. And you got to negotiate with us. We ended up having to give more to the county around, expressway improvements and so forth than we ever gave to the city of Santa Clara, which is interesting given the fact that you think the city of Santa Clara would be more concerned about traffic. But the good news is we've got that resolved. We now have a situation where Matt and the team at the City Hall are going to be able to move forward aggressively with housing development along the light rail corridor near the BART station, where we need to be building a lot of housing. We made some progress in other ways. We got Measure E passed, which is really important in 2020. course, we didn't have any funding after the death of redevelopment agencies a decade ago, so we had to find new sources of funding. We tried to measure in 2018, right after I introduced that. It got 64% of the vote, but it was short of the 2/3 requirement, so it went back to the ballot 2 years later, got Measure E passed. That was more than $100 million we used last year alone for quick build housing, a lot of other projects, motel conversions. So the good news is we started to put the pieces in place for us to really accelerate the work, getting the funding in place for affordable housing, getting development open in a big part of the city where we could build. We're now finally building on churches and church lands, I should say. Not building on the churches, but on the parking lots. Yeah, we don't.
That might be controversial.
Yes, this is we call it Yigby. Yes, in God's backyard, but we're not displacing God. We're just putting it in the parking lots. So a lot of those kinds of policies are changing now. We increased a lot of zoning and densities downtown elsewhere. So I'd like to believe we're putting the city in better position to move quickly now. It took us way too long to get there.
A couple of years ago when we talked, you said the entitlement process
Yep.
had stalled or dried up. That's builders going through the process of getting permission to build. Has that geared up again? Are applications coming through?
So not really. There's a bigger problem right now with the markets, and construction costs are very high. It's somewhere between $750,000 to $850,000 a unit to build an apartment complex. And so if developers can't show the banks, lenders, equity investors that they can make X kind of profit, then obviously they're not going to get the money to build. And right now, those markets are largely frozen here. They're open in other parts of the country where it's a lot cheaper to build. So until we can get construction costs down, I think it's going to be very difficult to get a lot of housing built here. That's very cyclical, and perhaps with interest rates coming down, we hope if we can get past the current increases, and we know it'll probably be another few months of increases, but I am hopeful if there's going to be a downturn in the economy, as I think many expect, at the very least there'll be the silver lining that some of those costs will come down and we'll be able to get housing built again.
What about staffing up the city? I've asked you this question every year for the last 8 years.
Oh yeah.
And the first time I asked it in 2017, there were 800 open positions.
Yep. Still probably that many.
Still about 800 open positions.
Yep. Yeah. It's. I think that will change as the unemployment rate increases. I suspect there'll be more opportunity for City Hall to be able to hire. We're competing in or had been competing, at least throughout my tenure, in an economy and in a market where simply people could make a whole lot more money going somewhere else. And we dramatically increased pay throughout my time, but we know we're not going to be able to offer options. And I know that there are some suburban communities that simply have more resources. So, the good news is I think as we look at, for example, in the police department, we've added more than 200. We've expanded the department by more than 200 officers in the time since roughly 2017. Obviously, we'd love to be adding more, but that was a really critical need, and I think we're now out of the critical area, and we're actually able to be a much better functioning department. We just have a lot more work to do. And guess what? The work of a city and the work of a mayor is never done. So we put that problem on Matt's desk as well.
Well, and Matt talked about it in the campaign. Cindy talked about it in the campaign. They know. I don't think they've figured out an answer yet. I hope they will, because every city service suffers.
Yes.
From understaffing, from animal control to planning to police. Although you've done a little bit better with police. Another thing you've talked about in the past was charter reform, a strong mayor form of government. You said in past interviews the structure needs changing.
Yep.
There's a misalignment between authority and public accountability. It's a sclerotic process, your words.
I had to look that one up. I hope you're proud of it.
You used it. But it didn't happen. It went to a charter reform commission that just actually killed it.
Yeah, look, you don't get everything you want when you're mayor. That's the way it goes, and every mayor would like to have just a little more authority to be able to get some things done that they want to get done. I hope that for Matt's sake or whoever may serve after him, we do transition to a stronger mayor form of government. I think there's no question that there's a real problem in that the community understandably holds a mayor accountable for things that, when you understand what's going on within City Hall, and frankly, when you look at the broader picture around regional agencies and all the different forces that are involved, cities and mayors may not be complete control of those things, or any control of them.
And having said that, you've said more than once being mayor is the best job in government.
It is, yeah.
Is that, you still think that's
Yeah,
true?
I still think so.
Well,
you know,
good.
Norman Netta, I remember saying, he'd had an amazing career, right, after
Yeah,
serving in the cabinet and serving in Congress, and what was
yeah.
his favorite job? He said, I love being called Mr. Mayor. It's like there aren't many positions in this world where you can serve a community, your family's from, your friends, your neighbors, and have a real impact in that community. Look, we'd all love to do it some different way. You know, we can always find a better way to organize government, to enable this to happen better or faster. But at the end of the day, I can't think of a job where you can better have an impact in a community you love.
Well said. What's your advice for Matt Mahan, for the new mayor? What's your advice? He's got a seriously
Yeah.
divided council.
Yeah, he does.
Probably more than you had, although you coped with divided councils, I think, at least 6 out of your 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's your advice?
I mean, divisions are natural in any big city, and I know you know that.
And people
well,
don't
Terry.
recognize that most votes are unanimous anyway. It's the division on the 5 or 10% of the issues, right?
Right, or less, right?
Yeah.
It's probably closer to 1 or 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the good news is I think Matt is naturally a collaborative person, despite whatever may have been said throughout the election, and I think he's going to look for ways for win-wins and for ways to bring people together. And so far, he's doing a good job of that, from what I've been able to see. I think, the reality is his focus, and he's really carved out a very narrow focus for himself,
Yes.
for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
He understands people are frustrated about homelessness. There's a concern about public safety, concern about blight, and those are pretty, those should be non-controversial. They're non-ideological issues. Certainly, we can all get ideological
Yeah.
about all the solutions. But moving forward with progress on any of those things should be something everyone can take credit for.
Let's hope so.
Yep.
Let's hope there's something to take credit for. What about moving forward yourself?
Well, I got to go get a job, Terry.
Well,
are you hiring?
Yeah. Show us your resume. We'll interview. I could use a co-host.
I'm not sure it'd be any good, but I'm taking some time off, doing some traveling.
Good.
Jessica and I are going down to Colombia in a couple of weeks, which should be fun. We love to travel in Latin America in particular.
Yeah.
And then I'll be coming back and being much more focused. Right now I haven't been, but I've been enjoying a lot of time. Actually, I've become a unpaid consultant for about a half dozen nonprofit organizations. Suddenly
Watch out.
they've all called.
Watch out.
No, I know. I'm turning down any boards right
Yeah.
now, but there are a lot of ways to have impact in the community and to try to help, particularly nonprofits you care a lot about that are doing good work in the world. So I'm having fun doing that right now, and then I'll figure out the longer term in a few weeks.
A campaign again someday?
Could be, but it won't be this year.
Won't be this year.
Yeah.
Well, there's no election this year.
That's a good point. So it's easy for me to say.
But everybody else is running for U.S. Senate next year. So
Yeah, that's right here.
Yeah.
I won't be one of those.
All right then.
Yeah.
Sam Liccardo, thanks very much for being with us today. Thanks for your service as mayor. We really appreciate it. And for your frequent appearances on Valley Politics, especially thanks.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Terry.
We'll be back next month when Congressmember Zoe Lofgren will give us an inside look at the work of the January 6th committee. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Facebook, and you can catch up on all of our previous shows on our website at creatvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for CreateTV San Jose. Before we sign off, we'd like to take a moment to remember Bea Robinson Mendez. Bea was a lifelong activist and beloved leader of the Latino community here in the Valley. Sadly, she passed away last month. You can hear her story in her own words on our 2018 Valley Politics History interview with her, which you can find on YouTube.
And we created an organization called Committee on Public Safety, and we started going to City Hall council meetings, we would pack that place every Tuesday night, and we swore to the city council that we would be there every single Tuesday until they fired the police chief and or fired the officer who actually killed Danny Trevino.
Adios, Bea, you'll be missed. And now, that's all, folks. Thanks for watching.